Sweet.
And that is our man of the booth, our new permanent booth man! Welcome. Good to have you here. Good to have you all here. Of course, this was a very big day.
Huge day.
Huge Amazing day. I don't know if you guys heard, but the way I heard it, Spider-Man was elected president. Yes.
Yes, he can.
Yeah. That's a better joke than anything we did.
It's a brand new day for America.
President back in black.
Look at him. 60 years. Yeah, thank you for your.
Like, that doesn't quite work.
Bigger news. Alex found out that he can have a laundry machine in his apartment.
Yeah!
That's his wife Marnie screaming.
Yeah, we had a couple of great ways of opening the show, and we just decided to go for all of them.
Yeah.
Did you know that like a couple of months ago, Justin had a head wound?
Yeah. Glad we got that out there.
Yeah. Nice. We do have a great show for you guys. We're very excited about the guests that we have here. They are the creators of the awesome comic book comics, so let's welcome them out. Ladies and gentlemen, Fred Van Lente and Ryan Dunlavey. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show on this most historic of days.
Why?
Because you guys are on the show.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Cool.
Yeah. Very exciting. So let's talk about comic book comics. For those who aren't picking it up, and I assume that's basically nobody in here, but what? Tell us about the book.
Well, it's the history of comics as a comic.
Whoa!
I know. It's one of those very easy premises to explain. From it, from the birth of the Yellow Kid in 1896 to webcomics today.
And you guys previously collaborated on Action Philosophers, which was a history of philosophy. So why comic books next?
Just seems like the next lot. We just wanted to continue the funny, non-humor thing, and that
It was our shtick.
It was our shtick, and it just seemed to be the next logical thing. It seemed to interest us.
We're working on getting some shtick as well. If you have any ideas for us.
Talk after the show. Our rates are very reasonable.
Oh, good shtick.
We had like 3 or 4
By the
ideas.
Oh.
And then
That's how we need it.
So you guys have just done the second issue of Comic Book Comics, which takes us through comics at war. Tell us a little bit about that.
No, you-
Me.
So polite.
Well, each issue sort of has its own little theme. Like the first issue was basically pulps and comic strips and animation, all the different things sort of informing comics when they first came around, and then ended with the birth of Superman. And then the second issue, we talked about the golden age of comics and how that rose with World War II, and how those two things were pretty much simultaneous and non-coincidental, since it was a kind of a violent time, and kids now had money to spend on comics because the Great Depression had ended. You know, like see superheroes beat up Nazis. Something about beating up Nazis that sells comics for some reason.
Yeah, I don't get it.
No?
Because they're real and everyone knows them as evil.
Oh, okay.
Just like Dick Cheney today.
Exactly.
Did anyone see he looked like Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life?
I was thinking Dr. Strangelove.
I was thinking more Mr. Burns.
Apparently we all like Mr. Potter and Dr. Strangelove better. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Cool.
Hey,
Remember, shtick by the pound after the show. Holding a little seminar. And then we talked about artists having what their wartime service was in World War II. And then we talked about the birth of romance comics right after war, since, you know, after the war ended, people wanted to start bringing about fighting for some reason. I don't know why that was. And so superheroes kind of fell off the map there.
I'm sure that you did a significant amount of research while you were putting this together. Was there anything through the history of comics you found particularly surprising?
Yeah. Quite.
Just about every era had something that just came out or made some. We've always found some sort of connection that we never knew was there.
Well, you had your insane Windsor Decay experience.
Oh yeah, that was one thing. I actually, when I was doing the Windsor Decay thing, I had the idea of when I first started.
And he did Little Nemo in Slumberland. He was one of the first animators. was sort of?
I had this grandiose idea that I was going to draw all the sequences in the style of the actual artist, because I've done that before. It just ended up being way too much work, and I luckily found that out early on, trying to imitate Wizard of the Head. And
The book kept getting later and later.
They helped get
Ryan,
in doing his stuff, it was just so, trying to imitate his style, it was so counterintuitive to everything I ever learned doing artwork. And I was like, something was wrong with this guy. I think he might have been autistic. Just because of the level of detail and like the way that he constructed things more than anything else. I mean, I'm not an expert on that kind of stuff, but
or autistic yourself.
Maybe I am.
Would you say you're?
I'm sorry, how do you know if you're
Well, I don't know. Or maybe all the other artists that I imitated up to that point were artists.
You're really good at cheating in scene.
Yeah.
If movies have taught us that,
Yeah.
that would be it.
Fred, was there anything surprising you found?
Yeah, a whole bunch of stuff. The stuff I found most fascinating was all sort of the weird, how everything is sort of interconnected. I mean, it really sort of blew my mind to find out that Robert Crumb, when he was sort of first taking LSD and was experimenting with his sketchbooks while on drugs, one of the things that really inspired him to go out to San Francisco were the Avalon Ballroom posters that we produced in San Francisco for all the Jefferson Airplane shows, the Lovins and the Vians and the Indians that were going on there in San Francisco. And the first Avalon Ballroom concert was called a tribute to Doctor Strange, and it was the Marvel Doctor Strange. And so you keep finding all those convergences in the medium about how everything is so ridiculously interconnected, and it just sort of puts the lie to a lot of the prejudices we have, whether it's superheroes looking, not being interested in alternative comics looking down at superhero people, is that it really has been completely interconnected from the very beginning. Another thing that I thought was fascinating but made perfect sense when I read it was one of the main things that inspired Jerry Siegel to do Superman was watching the Fleischer Popeye cartoons and seeing the fights between Popeye and Blue and looking at it and saying, well, what if I tried to do this but did it straight, did it seriously, and that's what inspired him to come with what's basically the first superhero. Likewise, the romance comics came out of Joe Simon trying to copy, because someone hired him to copy Archie, which was a title that was taken over because the superheroes collapsed and they didn't have jobs now. Joe Simon and Jack Kirby didn't because they were primarily superhero artists, but they were inspired to do the first romance comic, romance, because they were doing an Archie ripoff and thought, what if we did this whole Archie, Veronica, Betty love triangle as a straight comic, and they started selling a million copies of romance.
And the third issue is coming out in about a week or two, right?
Yeah, it's literally at the printer right now.
Okay.
While we are sitting here.
One of the craziest things in the first issue was, I don't remember all the details, but one creator or one mogul had a double go to another meeting. This is one of the most legendarily sleazy comic book publishers of all time, quite possibly the sleaziest comic book publisher in history. Now, I know some people, would argue with me about this. There's a lot of competition, but Victor Fox, the story goes, although it's really never been verified, was that he was an accountant at DC Comics and then saw the sales figures for Action Comics #1 when they came in, promptly quit, and then opened an office in the same building that DC Comics was in, and started publishing comics about a character called Wonder Man. Coincidence? Yes. Wow, Victor Fox has been wrong all these years. And Will Eisner drew Wonder Man. And so he had a falling out with Eisner because Eisner would lie in the stand for him and say that Wonder Man was his idea when DC Prompt, of course, sued him. Crazy Eisner, what are you thinking? And so then he decided to start hiring all Eisner's artists out from under him, because Eisner had a little comic book shop that he had with his partner, Jerry Iger, except he didn't want people to know that it was him, so he made up this phony editor in the ads to lure people into the Victor Fox studio, so he then hired them away from Will Eisner. One of those people he hired was Jack Kirby. So, again, it's crazy. That's crazy. It's all connected. It's like the Wild West.
That's violent.